Hey everyone, History Hunter here, and today we're diving into some of the darkest times in human history. Have you ever thought about what really shaped our world? Wars, new inventions, big leaders? Yeah, all that's important. But today, we're talking about a quiet, invisible, but super powerful enemy: sicknesses. We're going to look at 7 of the most awful sicknesses that scared people in the past, leaving marks that we can still see today. This won't just be boring facts, these are stories about staying alive, fear, and how strong people can be. Okay, let's start with a real heavy hitter. Imagine this. You're living in the 1300s. Everything seems normal until suddenly your neighbor gets sick. He gets a fever. Strange, pus-filled lumps appear. Buboes form in his armpits. Buboes form in his groin. The lumps turn black. A few days later he dies in terrible pain. Soon his whole family gets sick. Then, your family. This isn't a movie script. It's the Black Death. Yersinia pestis reached Europe in 1347. It wiped out 30 to 60% of the continent. Early symptoms, fever. Early symptoms, headache. Early symptoms, weakness. Then came the buboes, painful swollen lymph nodes. Buboes could grow as big as an apple. Fleas transmitted the disease. Fleas lived on black rats. Rats traveled on trade ships across the Mediterranean. At the time, nobody knew why. People blamed God's anger, bad weather, or the planets and minorities, leading to massacres. Doctors wore bird-beak suits filled with herbs. Their treatments, like bleeding, made patients weaker. Now let's jump ahead to the 1900s. The world had just gone through World War I. Millions of people died, and countries were destroyed. It seemed like nothing could be worse. But then, in 1918, a new invisible killer showed up. It was called the Spanish flu, even though it probably didn't start in Spain at all. This type of flu virus, called H1N1, was super deadly. In just 2 years it infected about 1/3 of the world's population. That's about 500 million people. It's thought that between 50 and 100 million people died. That's more than all the deaths in World War I. What was the scariest part? This flu hit people really hard. Unlike regular flu, which is most dangerous for kids and old people, the Spanish flu mostly killed young, healthy people between the ages of 20 and 40. Imagine this: a soldier who survived the terrible war comes home and dies from the flu. This happened because the virus caused something called a cytokine storm. This is when your body's immune system reacts too strongly and actually destroys your own lungs. People died quickly and terribly, drowning in the fluid in their lungs. The huge movement of soldiers all over the world was perfect for the virus to spread. During the war, the government didn't allow bad news to be printed so that soldiers wouldn't lose hope. But in neutral Spain, newspapers could freely write about the widespread sickness, which is how it got the name Spanish flu. The huge movement of soldiers helped the virus reach America, Asia, Africa, and even the faraway Pacific Islands. Now let's talk about a sickness that probably killed more people than any other in all of history. That's smallpox. This virus, called variola virus, scared people for thousands of years. They even found its scars on the mummies of Egyptian pharaohs. It was one of the scariest and most feared diseases. If you got smallpox, your chances of living were about 70%. But even if you lived, the results were terrible. The sickness made you feel awful. It started like the flu, a fever and aches. But after a few days, a rash would cover your whole body, even your face, hands and feet. These spots would turn into blisters filled with fluid, and then into pus-filled sores. They hurt a lot. Finally, the sores would dry up and fall off, leaving deep, pitted scars for your whole life. Many people who lived through smallpox lost their eyesight. Smallpox spread through the air by touching the sick person's skin sores or by touching their things. In history, smallpox was like a powerful weapon. When Europeans came to America, they brought smallpox with them. The native people had never been sick with it before, so they couldn't fight it off. The sickness killed up to 90% of the people in the Aztec and the Inca Empire, which helped the Spanish conquerors take over huge areas. But the story of smallpox isn't just about death and sadness. It's also a story about one of the biggest wins for people in science. Even long ago, people noticed survivors didn't get smallpox again. In China and in India, they tried variolation, rubbing dried smallpox scabs or breathing in dried scabs hoping for mild sickness and immunity. The real change came in the late 1700s when English Dr. Edward Jenner noticed milkmaids who got cowpox never got deadly smallpox. Vaccination slowly spread worldwide. And finally in 1980 it was officially announced, smallpox, gone. Imagine a sickness that can kill you in just a few hours. You feel great and then suddenly you start having terrible throwing up diarrhea. You lose so much fluid that your blood gets thick, your skin turns blue and your eyes sink in. This is cholera, a disease that caused many worldwide pandemics in the 1800s and became the nightmare of fast-growing factory towns. Cholera is caused by a germ called Vibrio cholera, which lives in dirty water or food. When it gets into your body, it makes a poison that makes your insides let out a huge amount of fluid. A person can lose up to a liter of fluid every hour. Without quick and proper treatment replacing fluids, more than half of the people who get it can die. In the 1800s, cholera spread from its home in India, in the Ganges Delta, all over the world with trading ships and armies. It hit cities that were growing super fast because of the Industrial Revolution, London, Paris, New York, places without basic clean systems, crowded tenements and open sewers. For a long time people thought bad smells in the air caused it. But an English doctor named John Snow marked every death on a map during the Soho 1854 outbreak, and noticed almost all clustered around one water pump. Removing the pump handle stopped the outbreak. Later, cities built sewers and clean water supplies, a turning point. Today, cholera is easy to treat. Replace fluids fast, ORS and vaccines exist, but it still threatens places without clean water, after disasters and in war zones. We've already talked about the Black Death, but that was just the most famous plague pandemic. The plague has a few different forms and has bothered people for thousands of years. It's not just one sickness. There are three main forms: bubonic plague, septic plague, pneumonic plague. They're all caused by the same germ, Yersinia pestis, but they act differently depending on how the germ gets in and which part of the body it hits. Justinian's plague began in the 6th century during the peak of the Byzantine Empire. It started in Egypt and traveled along trade routes to Constantinople. At the worst, thousands died every day in the capital. Historians estimate 25 to 50 million died, and the empire never fully recovered. Bubonic, fleas cause swollen buboes. Septic, bacteria in the blood cause clotting and gangrene. Fingers, nose, limbs can turn black. Pneumonic, infects the lungs and spreads person to person through the air, killing fast. Scientists discovered the link to rat fleas in the 1800s, which led to rat control, quarantine at ports, better sanitation. Plague is rare today, but Yersinia pestis still lives in wild rodents. Western US, Africa, Asia, and occasional human cases occur. Surveillance and One Health matter. Now let's talk about a sickness that, in the 1800s, had a strange, dreamy feeling around it, but was actually a slow and painful killer. This is tuberculosis, also called TB. It's thought that in the last 200 years, it has killed more people than any other sickness you can catch, about 1 billion. This sickness grew in cities that were too full, in poor places and where things were not clean. Tuberculosis is caused by a tiny bug called Mycobacterium tuberculosis, which mostly hurts the lungs. It spreads through the air when a sick person coughs, sneezes, or talks, but not everyone who gets the bug gets sick. Most of the time, your body's defense system can trap the bugs in small, scarred spots in the lungs, where they can sleep for many years. Latent TB. The sickness shows up when your body's defense system gets weak because of other sicknesses, not eating well, or stress. Signs of active lung TB show up slowly: a cough that won't go away, sometimes with blood, weakness, weight loss, night sweats, and fever. The sickness slowly but surely eats away at the lungs from the inside, leaving holes. In the 1800s, symptoms like pale skin and thinness were romanticized. Many famous artists like Frédéric Chopin or Anton Chekhov died from TB. Sick people were sent to sanatoriums in the mountains or by the sea for fresh air, sunshine, and good food. It helped some, but many slowly died far from their families. The real big change happened in 1882 when Robert Koch found the bug that causes TB, a huge step forward that allowed tests to find the sickness. The first effective medicine, streptomycin, arrived in 1943. Treatment requires many months of multiple drugs. Stopping early can create drug-resistant TB, MDR-TB, a major global problem. TB remains a top 10 killer, especially in the poorest countries. The story teaches that science, patience, and fairness are needed, and that public health and vaccine research must continue. The last sickness on our list is a special one. It didn't spread through the air or dirty water, but through the closest human contact. This is syphilis, a disease that for hundreds of years was covered in shame and mystery. Because it could act like many other diseases, it was called the Great Imposter. Its story is deeply connected to wars, social change, and how medical rules developed. People think it spread a lot in Europe at the end of the 1400s after Columbus returned from America. The idea, it was milder in the New World and became stronger in Europe. Syphilis is caused by a tiny living thing called Treponema pallidum. The disease goes through a few stages. In the first stage, a painless sore called a chancre shows up in the private areas. It's often not noticed and goes away on its own. After a few weeks or months, the second stage starts. Rash all over the body, fever, hair loss, and flu-like symptoms. These symptoms also go away. Years later, the disease can come back and attack organs: heart, blood vessels, liver, bones. Gummas can destroy body parts. Neurosyphilis can cause paralysis, blindness, deafness, memory loss, wild behavior, and personality changes. For hundreds of years, the only treatment was mercury, poisonous and often worse than the disease. One night with Venus, a lifetime with mercury. Real help came in the 1900s, Paul Ehrlich's Salvarsan in 1909, then penicillin discovered by Alexander Fleming in 1928 and mass-produced in 1912. Penicillin remains the main effective treatment. The story of syphilis is about shame and stigma, and the long path to fair, effective treatment and public health outreach. Well, that's it, friends, our journey through the 7 scariest diseases that changed our world. From the Black Death, which broke down the old feudal system, to smallpox, which we, as a species, completely got rid of. Each of these diseases left a deep mark on human history, but they also taught us super important lessons. They made us get how important being clean is, pushed us to make big science discoveries, and built the foundation for modern public health. These stories remind us how fragile we are, but also how tough. I really want to thank all of you for watching this video all the way to the end. I hope it made you appreciate what we have today even more. If you liked this video, and want more, make sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell so you don't miss new videos. Which of these disease stories shocked you the most? Share in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and until next time.